Everyone, and welcome to today's Explainer. We're jumping right into a fascinating connection I've been digging into lately, one that bridges the fundamental laws of the universe with human psychology. Today we're exploring the overarching theme of resistance, and more importantly, how resistance is actually the secret engine behind resilience. It's a journey that literally changed how I look at the obstacles we face, whether they're massive, visible hurdles or invisible, microscopic ones. Let's dive in.
To get us started, I want you to think about this question. What do organizational change, lifting heavy weights, and copper wires all have in common? On the surface, absolutely nothing, right? One is human psychology in a corporate office, one is physical biology in a gym, and the last is hard, unyielding physics. But as we unpack the research today, we're going to bridge the gap between these seemingly totally unrelated worlds.
If we look at the actual definition of the word, it turns out resistance in physics is simply the opposition to the flow of electric current. But in biology and psychology, it's defined as the ability to withstand harmful or unfavorable conditions. What's amazing here is how this single word captures both a physical barrier and a complex system's ability to adapt. As you'll see, these two definitions are really just two sides of the exact same coin.
Let's move into Section 1. Resistance creates systemic resilience. The macro view. There's a quote that perfectly captures this high-level perspective. Resistance is the natural response of a system to an external force that threatens its current state of equilibrium. Think about that for a second. Whether it's the stress of working in a rapidly changing workplace or the heavy weights you're trying to lift at the gym, that opposing force disrupts your comfortable equilibrium. But that disruption, that pushback, is exactly what forces the system to rebuild itself so it can become stronger and more capable.
And this brilliantly illustrates just how universal this concept really is. In business, organizational change management, like the famous Cotter or Lewin models we often see, shows us that employee pushback isn't just stubbornness. It's a psychological friction that, when managed with trust, actually builds a highly resilient corporate culture. In biology, when bacteria face the stress of antibiotics, they enter an evolutionary arms race, adapting to survive. And in physical hypertrophy training, lifting a heavy weight literally damages your muscle fibers, which forces them to repair larger and stronger. So overcoming resistance is what builds the very foundation of resilience.
Okay, moving on to Section 2, the physics of electrical resistance, zooming into the micro.
To really grasp what's happening at the atomic level, physicists use something called the Drude model. Picture a giant microscopic game of pinball, or better yet, imagine trying to sprint through a crowded subway station during rush hour. As electrons are accelerated by an electric field through a wire, they don't just fly in a straight line. They constantly crash into a lattice of stationary ions and impurities, basically the commuters in our subway station. These frequent collisions slow the electrons down, limiting their drift speed, and that friction creates heat. That, in a nutshell, is electrical resistance.
Now, just like water flowing through pipes, electrons face opposition based on four specific physical variables: the length of the wire, its cross-sectional area, the type of material, and finally, the temperature. A wider wire offers less resistance, just like a wider pipe lets more water flow through smoothly. But that last variable, temperature, is where things get incredibly interesting.
Which brings us to Section 3, the temperature variable, the hidden enemy.
What I found completely counterintuitive about this is the nature of quantum physics when heat gets thrown into the mix. When you apply heat to standard conductors, like your everyday metals, the atoms start vibrating violently. This creates way more collisions for our electron pinballs in that crowded subway, so the overall resistance goes up. But it turns out semiconductors, like silicon, do the exact opposite. When you heat them up, the thermal energy actually releases more charge carriers, electrons in holes, into the conduction band. So for semiconductors, cranking up the temperature actually decreases the resistance. But engineers can't just guess how a material will react. They need hard, actionable math. They use something called the temperature coefficient of resistance. This provides concrete mathematical values to predict exactly how materials will react to heat for every degree Celsius. For example, copper sits at a positive 0.0040, meaning resistance climbs with heat. But silicon is negative 0.0750. Its resistance actually drops.
Let's dive into Section 4, testing circuits in the lab, uncovering the coefficients.
So how do we actually test this to understand how testing methods apply to electrical circuit performance during varying temperature conditions? Well, it's almost like a detective story where engineers purposefully subject materials to stress to uncover their true physical limits. One classic testing method involves taking a specimen, say a fine piece of copper wire, and winding it tightly around the stem of a thermometer. Then you submerge that coil into a water bath. As you slowly heat the water, you use a digital multimeter to continuously measure the voltage and current. Step by step, as the water begins to boil, you can literally watch the electrical resistance climb in real time. By recording the resistance at these different temperatures, engineers can calculate that exact temperature coefficient we just talked about.
And for establishing a material's baseline resistivity, engineers use the Mitchell-Wire bridge, which is based on the famous Wheatstone bridge circuit. First, you measure your wire's exact length and use a micrometer screw gauge to find its diameter. Then, by swapping known and unknown resistance coils in the circuit and finding a balance point along a 1-meter wire, you calculate the exact innate resistivity of the material. This rigorous testing is absolutely essential. It gives us the baseline we need before the ambient temperature even begins to fluctuate.
To really put into perspective why all this lab testing matters so much, consider this massive number, 2,550 degrees Celsius. That is the actual operating temperature of a standard tungsten light bulb filament. When the bulb is cold, its resistance is just 10 ohms. But when you flip that switch and it heats up to 2,550 degrees, its resistance drastically jumps to 144 ohms. If engineers didn't test for and calculate that massive temperature swing, the circuit would instantly blow.
And that leads us straight into Section 5, Building Resilient Electrical Circuits, Solutions from the Lab.
Because of all those lab testing methods we just explored, engineers know exactly how to design for true resilience. They intentionally utilize precision alloys like manganese and constantan. Why? Because their temperature coefficients approach zero. This is what true technological resilience looks like, folks. These are materials that can be plunged into ice or heated in an oven, and their electrical resistance barely changes at all. They basically completely ignore the heat, keeping circuits perfectly stable across extreme temperature fluctuations.
So, the ultimate takeaway here is simple but really profound. Understanding resistance is the absolute key to engineering resilience. Whether you are managing a massive organizational shift in a company, lifting weights to build muscle, or designing an electrical circuit to survive a scorching summer, predicting and managing those opposing forces, the resistance is exactly how you guarantee survival and growth. Which leaves us with a final thought to ponder. Where else is resistance secretly building resilience in the technology or even the social systems you rely on every single day? The next time you face friction, whether it's a dead battery in the freezing cold or a difficult project at work, remember that opposition is really just the first step toward adaptation. Thank you so much for exploring this unified theory with me today on The Explainer. Keep questioning, keep learning, and we'll catch you next time.